I'm just worried about how we can extricate ourselves from this situation. That's We're picking it up where we left it last time, on that Kiwi lambing beat just outside Kelso in West Otago here in New Zealand. If you haven't already watched that video, go ahead and watch that. That's vlog 58. You see us chasing around after some sheep, lambing a couple, having a good yarn about this farm in particular and the outdoor lambing system they run. Like I said at the end of that last vlog, I got so much good footage on the day, I thought I'd split it out into 2 vlogs. So this is the second installment. We're going up to the top farm where there's a greater number of ewes and also some calving cows, which we'll catch up with first. There are actually lots more ewes here than there are at the home farm, but these are the stronger, fitter, middle-aged ewes who should need much less assistance. So on the day, although we helped 1 or 2 out, and you can see that in the following footage, we talk a lot more about the farming system. We talk about how Fraser's got so many of his sheep to lamb so quickly at the start of lambing. We talk about how he overwinters sheep and how he's changed something about that this year. And we have a look at some of those cattle, and that is first on the list. Time to get stuck in.
Until the 90s, but what happened is that the dairy genetics became a lot more extreme, so you probably moved away from a Friesian and more to a Holstein.
The other thing we were actually talking about at the pub the other day was you're 10 days in, Fraser, to lambing?
Yeah.
So less than a full cycle. And how far do you think, what percentage of ewes do you think you're through?
Probably like 80 to 90%.
80 to 90%, which is...
It's a bit of a range, but...
Yeah. But still, like, that's pretty damn good, I'd say. Considering the cycle of a sheep is, what, 17 to 18 days. Did you tease them? Do you tease them?
No.
That's not teased either, so... it's quite something, and even more interesting is when we got chatting about the ram to ewe ratio. What do you top them, or do you make them here as, Fraser, like roughly?
About maybe 100 to 150 ewes per ram.
There's plenty of guys in the UK who would be topping at 1 to 30 or 40, and even the commercial high-end tups are sold with the thing, you know, this will mate 80 to 100 ewes.
I think the Hogget's scan at 130%, we have 1 to 50 in there.
Well, exactly. So it just shows you, presumably that's just like decades-long selection for fertility.
Yeah, it must be.
And do you get them checked at all? Are you on any sort of ram run? Like, or would you check them yourself pre-mating?
Yeah, the vets come out and do, and they palpate the rams.
Yes, okay. So just make sure that everything's hunky-dory downstairs. In terms of like a system like this, like a relatively extensive system, would that be a main point of veterinary input, or do you, how do you use vets?
Yeah, that's probably it's probably the only time that I really met a vet, and then we do a consult for the products that we're using.
Yeah.
Any input product.
Yeah. We should say, the reason I know Fraser is because his girlfriend, who is a vet, suggested coming. So you've got a vet in-house almost.
Yes, it's good. It's only a phone call away. They're not cheap to keep a vet. The survivability of lambs is awesome when you make sure you have the reasonable level of feeding and correct product inputs for like supplements.
Yeah. So you were saying earlier you scan typically about 180.
Yeah. 180, 188, I think it's the highest I've seen.
And then
For singles and twins.
singles and twins. And then in terms of your tailing, so when you come, what age are they tailed at typically here?
They'll be about 30, they'll be a maximum of 30 days old.
Yeah, so so a month on, what are you sort of tailing at?
165 in the main lineup here, and about 150 in the older years.
Okay, would that be comparable to what you're selling them at, like rearing percentage? Yeah, you won't lose many after tailing.
Like we're losing about 60 odd after
tailing.
and it was annoying me, so I started 5-in-1ing them.
Yeah, so 5-in-1 is a clostridial vaccine.
Yes.
Like Tavac or similar, yeah.
Yeah, I reckon it was pulpy kidney.
Yeah.
Was the clostridial. So, and then it's dropped right down.
Fantastic. So, and 60 lambs out of however many you had. I mean, it is obviously more than you want, but it's not, it's not excessive as a percentage. On a day like this, outdoor lambing really does seem like the obvious choice, and it is a great day. We talked about that in the previous video. Bear in mind though that they aren't all like this. This is a video of what it was like just a few days later. Not such a pretty picture. Yeah, who's Gonzo?
He's that one over there. There's Gonzo and Sylvester. What's this one? Hey Gonzo, how you going? Hey buddy. How are you?
So was he a pet calf by any chance?
Yeah, we fed it. He was one of like a twin.
Yeah.
We fed him out of a bucket.
Oh, steady.
But he's a bit violent. So you're just like,
Just very affectionately violent.
See, like
Oh, he wants to suck you.
and he's really strong. Like he's probably like 350.
Oh, he's solid.
Kilos.
Jesus. Still wanting to suck. I think he remembers you, Fraser, anyway.
You put his face in the bucket like this.
Bloody hell.
But like and then you don't, and then you'll wait for the bump.
Gonzo.
You're just gonna watch, you don't sort of push him away because he starts pushing you back.
Time to get on the bike.
Yeah, see him back.
At least there's a unit though.
Yeah, here's a unit.
Well, Gonzo, good to meet you.
Steel cap boots with this thing, eh? Watch your feet.
I'm just worried about how we can extricate ourselves from this situation. That's
Yeah, we'll just have to take off on the bike.
right.
Yeah.
Right, here we go.
Excuse me.
Gonzo. What a lovely little car.
It's just going to be a bit frightening when he's like 550 kilos, eh? Like nothing like that.
Wanting a feed.
Yeah.
That is quite something. A bit more hilly.
85 kilos of 36 on.
Okay.
So it's whatever 85% of 36 is nitrogen.
Yes.
And it's got sulphur in it as well.
Right.
In the autumn. And these paddocks have been grazed 3 times over winter. And this is the regrowth we've had.
Okay. So that's a really interesting point. We said we talk about it on camera. Was these sheep aren't normally set stocked, are they? They're set stocked for lambing.
Yeah, that's it.
And so first of all, why do you rotationally graze them for most of the year?
To maintain quality of pasture so that they grow well.
Okay, cool.
And so we'll have these set stocked for 24 days.
Yes.
And then we'll mob them into groups for about a six break shift.
Yes.
So there'll be about 5 mobs on this farm of 1,000 ewes.
Yes.
And yeah, they'll sort of rotate, and then after weaning, the lambs will get into mobs of male and female,
Yes.
and the ewes will follow them to clean up.
Yes, okay, right, so like a leader-follower system, what that's called, yeah. And then, but so for the people who wouldn't understand, like, why do you then set stock them at lambing? Why not have them rotationally grazing in those big mobs?
Well, you need a bit more just space for lambing, so there's not as much smothering.
Yes.
Like to avoid it.
So if they're all on top of each other, there's more chances for things to go wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that when we bring sheep inside in the UK to small pens to lamb them, I suspect that does upset the natural rhythm of things, because they're probably at a density in those pens that would be equivalent to a set, like a mob.
You almost want to have earplugs in there, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, yeah. When you get the feed sack out, they all go bananas. That's been a really interesting difference. You know, farmers over here a few weeks ago would have. The term is spreading out, isn't it? They spread out their sheep.
Yeah. You've got to manage your feed, so you're sort of looking ahead and doing a feed budget and seeing what you've got. And these ewes will come out of lambing, and they need like to recover.
Yeah.
So you've got to be pretty careful with them. And then we'll sort them into what lines they are, keep them rotating, and you'll change their feed based on their gestation.
Yes.
Well, coming up to ovulation, you'll start progressively lifting their feed intake.
Yeah, so you're flushing them a bit. Yeah.
Flushing them, and then we'll do that for the 24 days, and then button them off. And then we'll, between 50 and 100 days after mid-mating day, we'll hold them.
Okay.
Hold them on feed, and then gradually increase their feed intake in a rotation. And in the last 35 days before set stocking, we'll feed them as much as we can. We like plan and see how much we've got left, and just everything.
Let them have it.
Yeah, and you'll start leaving maybe a quarter of a paddock ungrazed.
Yeah.
As you're getting within 20 days of lambing.
Yes.
A quarter of each paddock, and then and you'll feed them grain as well, like barley, and put a bit of magnesium in there, and some salt. Like, you used to have a thing where people say, oh, you got to button off because you'll have a prolapse if you overfeed them. You'd have about 25 odd prolapses a year and 3,000 ewes. Yeah. And we went from, when I completely upped the feeding, we went from 25 to 5.
Right, so that didn't bear out.
No.
We talked about earlier the number of ewes, so about 4,000, sorry.
Yes, there's about 3,000 ewes and about 1,000 hoggets.
On what sort of area are we talking about?
300 hectares.
But I presume part of the reason you're able to stock it highly is because that rotational grazing and keep the quality up and grow more grass, I guess.
And of course inputs, so we put in on like about 62 of N, about 20 of phosphorus, 20 of K, and sulfur equivalents, it's about 30 odd. Yeah. And then you every year you're putting on a proportion of the farm with lime to keep pHs between 5.8 and 6.
Yeah. Has the cost of all those things gone up here, just same as at home? Yeah.
Yeah. DAP was like $8.50 a tonne for like a long time, and now it's like $1,800.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That is what it is. I guess that's the system. That's what you try and flex within that as you can. But
yeah, well, we've sat there this year and gone, well, put on 50% of the main maintenance phosphorus Ks and sulfurs, and held the N level, the nitrogen, and then we'll just see what happens with market over the next few while.
There you go.
But you can see, like, here, and there's the neighbouring farm. Yeah. You can see the difference between, like, that's a low input, minimal fertiliser. Yeah. And the difference between the amount of feed that's grown here.
Yes, you can. So, even from a distance. Yeah. You see, that fence line, much greener beneath than above, isn't it?
And that's the same amount of stock. Yeah. That's the same amount of area, sorry, but, just in beef cattle.
Steady girl. Fantastic, those ones are good.
Yeah, it's lucky, eh? You have to. Sometimes I'll pick up like 7 or 8 of those a day.
It's weird though, isn't it? You get these runs of them. But you were saying before that when you had a bit more Texel breeding in the AUs,
Yeah,
you'd have far more of those.
a lot more.
And you just thought that like that fleshiness presumably on top just meant they were flatter and heavier, I don't know.
Yeah, flatter back.
Yeah.
It's called sunny face, isn't it?
Sunny face, you can see why.
But yeah, we went.
So this we just stopped up at the top farm, and Fraser's talking about his wintering strategy, something he tried. So walk us through it, Fraser. What are we looking at?
So one of the rules for environmental laws in New Zealand is to reduce nitrogen losses after you've had a brassica.
Yeah.
So we use kale as a brassica, and then in order to deal with the nitrogen, we've planted plantain into it as well.
Right, and that's what we can see over here.
So this was direct drilled in the spring into it's sprayed out with glyphosate. So it's sowing it late November, and it's then grazed in late January with lambs. So you put about 70 odd lambs to the hectare.
Yes.
50 to 70 at about 32, 35 kilos, and then you work them up to about 42 to 45 kilos, and they kill out at 45% yield. And then we'll hold this paddock again about three months.
Yes.
After all the lambs have finished off it, and let it come away, and it'll probably have 8 to 10 tonnes per hectare. So yeah, and then now, so these have been off of that for about a month.
Yeah.
And this is the regrowth from behind them. So that's picking up any nitrogen in the soil profile. It's got a real deep taproot.
Yeah, and that's what we're just saying. That's highly topical, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. It's I suppose it's all about keeping that nitrogen locked in the soil.
Yes. Yeah.
I farm a bit on the side as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and try and farm. Yeah, it's good crop and
oh, exactly. Yeah, no, it'd be fantastic. Well, give a bit more regrowth on it. Be rocket fuel.
Yeah, well, you could drill clover into that earlier on.
Yeah.
And it'll be a real good clover crop. But for our system to work, we have to take this out again. So that'll be sprayed off and mulched.
Okay.
All of it will be mulched down and then cultivated in, and it'll come up as ryegrass. 14 kilos of perennial rye, 8 of clover.
As we touched on earlier in the video, the Kiwi system is highly dependent on growing and then using a lot of grass in the best way possible. A big part of this is rotating stock frequently around grass. This means they utilise it in a more efficient manner, and the grass grows back in more quantity and better quality. Sometimes this can mean growing as much as twice the grass you would have otherwise grown, where animals are much more spaced out in a field but then aren't moved or rotated for a long period of time. These are some of the lighter in-lamb ewe hoggets. A hogget is the same thing as a hog at home or a ewe lamb. So these sheep are coming up to a year old themselves and will shortly be due to lamb. They lamb a bit later than the rest of the sheep, so they haven't yet been spread out. They're still on a rotational system. And here Fraser is giving them a fresh bite. It's a good opportunity to see just the difference between the grazed area and the ungrazed area. How many hoggets are in there, Fraser?
There's about 850 in here.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you've got the dry line and the cull line
Oh, okay.
taken out.
And what size are these paddocks?
This is 6 hectares.
6 hectares, okay.
Yeah, so they'll be set stocked at about 15 to the hectare,
Okay,
but they're rotating around at about 25 to the hectare at the moment.
okay.
And this was grazed about 25 days ago,
Right.
down to the board.
25 days ago, and that was razored down, and
Yeah.
that's what it's looking like now.
A couple of kellies coming away. No, it's
And you've got the clever ones over there.
yeah. Let's bite. Let's bite. Gotta go. Go right. Not left. Sit down. Sit. Or not. Sit down. Go right. Go right.
Right, that's enough lambing for now. If you enjoyed that video and you want to see some more, don't be afraid to click subscribe, ring the little bell next to it, it means you get all the updates about new videos. Give the video a thumbs up and leave me a comment to let me know what you thought. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.
Good at catching lambs.
Makes it so much easier than trying to run after them, eh?
We're coming out here.
Ah, no, we'll go up.
Oh.